Barbara Hurt-Simmons is not here today, so I'm taking her place. I hope you guys had a great vacation and break, and you look much more relaxed than the last time I saw you.
For now.
Okay, so starting on our agenda, our first item is approval of the program of studies for East and West High School. Dr. McNeil?
Thank you, Mrs. Cranny. If we could, thank you. Is this, well, matters in some regard. There are a couple of differences in terms of the offerings of blended courses, but the other pieces of the programs of study are the same. I would like to point out to Curriculum Council a couple of, I think, really neat improvements to the programs of study. You did see and hear about the new courses in the programs of study, but you haven't seen some of the changes to progressions, course progressions, and some other notable things that the curriculum leaders worked on. So if we could go please to page 27. And curriculum leaders, if there is anything that as we pull up your page, you would like to make note of. Page 27 on my edited copy here is the mathematics progressions. So Dr. Manganello, when this page comes up, if you could just speak to your reasons for change, right? I think we passed it along. Is that Art? Did I miss you, Julie?
In the very beginning. I'm not the one who passes.
Is that?
I'm person.
Yes. Okay. Did you pass one, Tony, on page 16? I'm sorry. I didn't give that page. Let's start in linear order. Page 16. The curriculum leaders do spend considerable time to draft these pages, so I would like to point them out. Okay, back toward the beginning, it's the art progressions. My pagination must be different. There it is. Okay, so Julie, could you just at a glance give us information about what this gives people a better sense of?
Sure. So we had a diagram that we've actually included in our pamphlets over the years, so I just adjusted it for the book. The first level are our level 1 courses that any student can take without any prerequisite at all. And then the second row is a prerequisite that's before it. And then at the bottom level, we have our higher level courses and our AP courses as well. There's not much that changed with it. We changed some of the wording in the AP Studio courses to make it clearer to students what is required in the workload so that they are more prepared for it. But other than that, we didn't really change too much. We changed some wording in our jewelry course. Oh, we changed the name of our jewelry course to call it medals above it. That's really all we changed. We didn't do too much, just some wording here and there.
Okay. All right, but I think the visual helps parents and students understand the course progressions a little better.
And
right? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, before they could see this, but they had to come up and get the art brochure from us. So now we put it in the book so it's clear for everybody.
One-stop shopping.
Got it.
We'd like parents and students to use the programs of study to help educate them about what we have available. And these, at a glance pages improve that.
And if you scroll up, we even have artwork in here now too.
Oh, artwork next to the courses.
Yeah, I think I made the cut.
Oh, let's see,
Yeah, we
let's
were
see
really
a page of
promoting.
that. Okay, so now art is the discipline to compete with.
Yeah.
We need a picture of an abacus for math. Get on that thing. Okay.
And if you go
Can
up,
we see a page? Tony, just go up a page, or who's ever.
Not that
Julie
page, that's
is
a boring
mentioning
page.
it. Keep going.
Oh no, it didn't make the cut.
It didn't make the cut.
It didn't make the cut.
Uh-oh,
We
where's
put
Dr.
artwork in
Reed?
there.
He's the cutter. Okay. Didn't make the cut.
Artwork?
Yeah.
I don't know. Black and white, pretty, would it have come out?
Yeah, we said because if you did a hard copy, it'd be black and white, which was fine, and then the digital version would be color.
About the page before, is there another page?
There was an artwork with almost every course.
Okay.
And it was small, they were like little thumbnails.
Oh, yeah, I
just to give
remember them.
Mhm.
Yeah, initially I wasn't sure if they were, you know, like
We didn't want to
renowned
show
artists.
No, they were student artworks.
Oh, God. Dr. Reed has a career in politics. He said he didn't want to show favoritism to any department. And math didn't have an abacus they liked. Okay, page 27. The math progressions. Look up. I'm passing. What do you think? Okay, go ahead, Tony. Sorry. Okay, there we are.
So we had a diagram before that had a lot of arrows and it was a little bit confusing to follow. So we created a sort of streamlined diagram here so that students and parents can figure out what course they're taking in 8th grade. We put the 8th grade course in, so it gives everyone sort of a place to start measuring from, and then where they should go based on their 8th grade course, how they progress.
So Dr. McNeil, does every content area have a progression like this, or is it just math and art?
No, we have one in science and social studies in world language. So we're trying to put these into the program of study when it seems appropriate for the progression of courses and what courses are electives. You'll see social studies has done that. Next page, my page is 33, it's science. Now science was in last year's program of study, but I just thought we might want to share this again. Where is Mr. Daney? Mr. Daney, okay.
Yes, we included this in last year's program of study as well. The only changes to it were a couple of course names, just to get them up to speed with what they refer to in the actual program.
I think with science, what is especially noteworthy is there are some career links. So, you know, if you're interested in a medical science progression, you would take that progression of courses, biology, chemistry, physics, and then choice of electives in 12th grade. I think that should be helpful to parents as well as students in planning courses for students to take. Okay, thank you, Mr. Daney. 38. 37, there you go. Social studies. Now, social studies is new to this year's program of study. Ms. Jackson?
Yes. This is new this year, and we really looked at trying to do something similar with course projection and applicable career paths, but we found in trying to build that kind of a table that it got a little confusing, so we chose to kind of streamline it, go with the available courses per grade, listing basically just the grade level courses, and then as well as any AP courses that would correspond to students in those areas.
So I think with this, this table, the top row are the courses that students are required to take, and as you get in 10th grade, the requirement in 10th grade can be fulfilled by 2 different courses.
Yes.
In 11th grade by 2 different courses, and then in 12th grade by 4 different courses.
Yes, yes, those are.
So that there is no confusion about choice, yeah.
Right, the electives are teased down into the bottom.
Yeah, that was I think a very clear way to do this.
There's no chance to take an elective course as a 10th grader in social studies? Is there no room in their schedule? Is that why?
Generally, what we find is the schedule just prohibits it. We did actually have, I believe, We tried to do that for a student that asked for it last year, but they're in 9th and 10th grade, their schedules are very prescribed, and there just was no wiggle room unless they wanted to give up something else, which they didn't. So it becomes problematic for 9th and 10th grade to try and wedge it in there.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Page 46 or 47, I'm not sure which one for you, Tony. World language progressions. Okay, there we are. Mrs. Aaron.
Yep. We did not previously have progressions in the handbook, so I think that this will help to clarify some questions that we often get at back or for selection night, especially regarding the different trajectories that there are based off of the languages that we have. We often get questions from parents about how far their students can progress based off of what language they select. And also, if you see towards the end of the progression for French, German, and Spanish, we have a mixed class, which can sometimes be confusing for our students. So we hope that this will help to clarify some questions that students often have.
So just tell us very briefly, Lauren, when you say the mixed class. Tony could point to that with the cursor. Are you talking about honors seminar?
That's right. Yep. So again, based off of the language that you take, we have these mixed classes, which are honors seminar mixed with AP. And if it's German, it's actually level 4 mixed with honors seminar mixed with AP. But if you start level 1 in 7th grade, you could really go a number of different ways. So if you just look at the top, you could go level 1 to level 2 to level 3, 10th grade, you could go to level 4, or you could go to honors seminar. And if you went to honors seminar, you could go to honors seminar for a second year and then to AP your 12th grade year. Or you could go from level 3 to level 4 to then going to honors seminar, and then from there to honors seminar 2 or to AP. Obviously, our goal is to get students to be taking the AP classes, but there are a lot of different possibilities that they have.
And so if students have any questions about this progression, teachers are available for selection night.
Yes, that's right.
Any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Herring. And finally, the last two pages, 49 and 50 on my draft copy. Is there a page before that, Tony? Okay. The advanced placement courses that are being offered by the Downingtown Area School District, we have 26, right? 26 course offerings in AP for our students to select from. We should feel very proud about that, I think. There are just a couple of languages and I believe one physics course. Is that right, Mr. Gainey? And a couple of, we added Latin, but we don't yet offer Italian, and what's the other language? And I think two of the languages, we have the language and culture, but we don't have the...
Spanish also has literature,
Yes.
Which we don't offer.
We don't offer that.
And being that we have a lower enrollment in our AP class, I think it would kind of detract from those numbers
Right.
at this point. And then I think there's also a Chinese.
A Chinese, yes. So maybe that can be our goal if we have enough students in Rosetta Stone taking Chinese, right?
We do have quite a few.
Do we? All right. Okay, and the last page is our dual enrollment courses. Now, just serendipitously enough, we had, our superintendent was in touch with Westchester University, and we think we are going to be able to offer courses pending board approval of that agreement with Westchester University. We will be able to offer some courses through Westchester, and Carol Warren, where is Carol? Okay. Carol Warren is working right now with the person at Westchester who is in charge of dual enrollment. So if we can get a meeting set up and some agreement made and bring that to the board and Board Curriculum Council in February is our hope. And then we can pose this as some kind of an addendum to the program of study. Okay.
Questions? I do have a question. Is this being printed for all the 8th grade students going into 9th grade, and for everyone else it's just available online? Is that true? All right, board members, okay for moving on? Okay, yes.
Can we get a couple of hard copies, Dr. Reed, for administration and the board?
Yeah, we always make extras. They're being printed right now.
Great.
And they've been in the process of being printed.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next, we're going to switch the agenda a little bit and talk about field trips next. Ms. Saxa, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Mrs. Manning. We have 3 field trips for review this afternoon. The first is a life skills field trip to the Convention Center Auto Show, and this enables our life skills students to work toward their standards and goals specific in their individualized education plan, including navigating pedestrian safety in a large city, learning how to operate in large crowds, and otherwise participating in a public event. We also have, for the first time, STEM is requesting a non-curricular trip to Hershey Park for the senior class only, and this would be a culminating activity. And then finally, we have a request, actually it comes from West Bradford Elementary. It's for AP chemistry students to attend their science fair and act as judges. And so these students would travel, they would only miss one period, and they would travel to West Bradford and back. We do have trips to our elementary schools in the bank, we just didn't have this particular one, so we wanted to put that up for the board's approval.
They don't want to bank this stuff, Ms. Saxa, it's just one time.
It was a one-time for this time.
Any questions? Are we okay moving all these on? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally, the calendar, next year's academic calendar. Did you want to go to the programs since Dr. Muslim is on here? Right.
Want to wait? That's
Should we
fine.
go?
Sure.
Okay, that's fine. Is there any public input? Yes.
Pia DeSanto, Upper Euclid. Just a shout out to Westchester University. My daughter did that when she was still in high school. She did the English course, or I think it was a literature course through them, and she loved it. She got 6 credits with it. It was a little pricey, which is, I think, part of the reason things didn't work out with it. But she learned a great deal in the course, and it was very much worthwhile.
Thank you. Is that one of the ones there in Logan? Do you know, Dr.
Actually, the classes that are being offered, one of the things that happened with the English is that universities have unilaterally told us that they want classes that are not offered in the high school. They want classes that go beyond. So the classes that are being, there are 4 that are selected, which I will show you in February. I'm fairly certain because we already have we had a former contract with them, which helps move things through the attorneys quickly. So on both ends, I had a long conversation with their distance learning person yesterday, Chris Fioranza, and I think we should be able to do this. There are 4 courses already slated for the fall. One is in information technology. They were all looked at very carefully that they extend the curriculum. I asked them to look at nutrition as a future. One is special education, intro to special education for young teachers. I specifically was asking them to look at things that would expose our students to careers so they could actually take a look at what they may want to do. So I'll show you all of those and the curriculum document, the actual supporting documents to describe the class in February. We're slated for that. and he's looking at nutrition for the fall. There'll be 4 or 5. One of the nicest things that Westchester is doing for us is making it so that the time is 1:05. They're offering the Boot Road campus, so that both the West students and the East students can be there within 15 minutes and can return in time for sports. So it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Because it's off campus, they can actually get their college credit, which was also a problem by offering it in-house. So we're really working, really partnering with this really nicely, and I'm hoping to have more information for you in, final, but not the English, because the English was becoming problematic for a lot of reasons. A lot of can speak to those too, but actually colleges, and I just met with the Dean of Penn right before the holidays, they want to see things that can't be taken by in the present curriculum. So that's the reason for that. Question, Jane?
So when will the students be aware that these courses are offered, and then how does this work? So they're going to go ahead and sign up for other courses, and then they'll drop?
No. That my hope is. This is why we're rushing, because Dr. Scanlon had the meeting on December 23rd, and so it came to Dr. Muscoline's attention shortly thereafter, and of course he...
Actually, the 24th.
Oh, you are there? Okay, we got
Came
there.
to my attention.
You
Jim called me.
always-
I don't know, I just came in.
Okay,
I came
you were
in
there.
clandestine.
So you got the 24th,
Right.
which is even later. But fortunately, I was able to have that conversation yesterday because Dr. Muscoline passed it on quickly to me, and I have invited them to our course selection night, which we always have our dual enrollment people there, so that they can assuming the board, I don't want to jump the gun, but assuming the board is interested in this, they could attend our course selection night and give out information. If for some reason the board didn't approve it for this year, we could be talking about it for next year. But they are ready to go. They would then be able to sign up as part of their courses. They would sign up for their downtown courses, but they could leave space in their schedule for those dual enrollment courses. I've asked them for, Muslim doesn't even know this, but I got a yes. I asked them for on-site registration for our students, which I also have with Delaware County now, because that precludes the transportation issues that might be involved with getting them to be able to register. There's one little thing that Howard's bigger than me have to work out that I need to run by you, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. And there's one little small detail that has to be done at the administrative level, but the rest looks pretty easy. And some of the courses they're going to offer really, really awesome and exciting things that I think our students might like. One is forensic science. There's a host of things that the students might be interested in that all are beyond the curriculum.
I did want to clarify, we are offering the English in-house with Widener. We had decided not to go with Westchester because of a variety of reasons, most notably the significant cost that they require versus Widener. So I don't want to out Westchester for their priciness, but Widener does offer 6 credits for $400, which is a great deal. So that's still an option.
Any other questions? Good stuff, yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to program information then.
All right, thank you,
We'll
Mrs.
come back.
Manning. Unfortunately, Mr. McCumsey, our health and physical education curriculum leader, is unable to be with us today, so we are not going to have a curriculum leader showcase this month. So we'll move directly into our monthly technology report. Mrs. Yenzer. Mrs. Legarski, at some point during Mrs. Yenzer's technology report, if you would be kind enough to pull up the PAC talking points after Colleen's.
You did a good job adjusting that sound system.
Here, got it.
Right, our wardrobe malfunction. Great. Mrs. Legarski, would you be able to bring up that PowerPoint, please?
technology department.
Okay. The technology department has been busy working for you. I wanted to take a little bit of time for this month's meeting to do some projects in review to let you know what's been going on behind the scenes that has been completed and projects that we're working on coming forward. So Tony, if you could flip, perfect. So the first project I wanted to focus on are Project Lead the Way in Cloud Classrooms. Over the course of the past 6 weeks, with the support of the board, we ordered 150 computers to replace equipment in 7 labs, 3 at East and 4 at West, in the Project Lead the Way and CAD areas. They were installed for student use for start of the student day by January 5th. That took a lot of effort and coordination by many, from curriculum to Gavin Spears to Wes Robinson, who did floor plans for the one room, to facilities to technology. A lot took place to get that taken care of. Initial feedback from students, teachers, and principals have been really positive. This morning, Mr. Hurley said to me this morning that the students yesterday performed in 1 class period what had taken them a week and a half to do before. So the gain in instructional time was huge. So I stopped by East this morning and I talked to Mr. Lister's class. If you could flip to the next slide, Tony. Ooh. There we go. This was the introduction to engineering. I was talking to a few of the students to see what they thought. His name was actually Ronnie, and Luca told me that they gave me the thumbs up. They were working on an inventor class assignment and doing very well. They said it would never performed this way before. So we're really happy to get that project done. I have to tell you, this was actually a massive project when you actually look at it from start to finish. And the imaging and the software packages that needed to be loaded and everything that needed to be done. So if you flip to the next slide, Tony, I just wanted to let you know everybody who took place to get this project done. From the school board to Dr. Mussolini to Dr. McNeil to the principals, tech ed, facilities, tech staff, even our secretary making sure that the orders were right and that they were coming in and all boxes were accounted for, everything. It was a huge team effort, so thank you to everyone who participated in that project. You could go to the next slide, Tony. Perfect. So a couple projects that are still in progress, but you should be noticing the benefits from if you flip to the next slide. Our firewall, we replaced it and it went live on December 23rd. Now why that matters to you is some of you may have noticed internet latency. We were currently maxing out our firewall, as we've spoken out before, with the previous model, and by replacing this should have allowed a bigger pipe. We went from a straw to a 5-inch pipe. That's the easiest way to think about it. In addition to it being installed, we've also configured and installed all the security and threat protections, which are going to be a huge benefit to us. The next step for us in this is to actually do the traffic shaping. These signs of improvement are actually pretty interesting to look at. Number one, if you look at the first graph, that's a CPU utilization that was pegged at 100% on our old unit, and you can see that we're not even using up to 10% currently. These graphs were taken yesterday, by the way. The other piece is actually the throughput, which is what I want to talk to you about. We had 400 meg that we were about maxing out at. We've seen spikes in the past 2 days that have taken us above 800 megs. So the last step is to do the traffic shaping and saying, okay, before we make any recommendations to increase our bandwidth, we want to make sure that the bandwidth that's being utilized is being utilized for instruction. So we can actually say if students are gaming on their phones, we can diminish their priority in the bandwidth usage, if you will, and we can increase Study Island and all those different instructional resources. So that's why I say that this project is still in process. We couldn't really tell your usage until you came back from the holiday break. So we're now monitoring that and now starting to prioritize some of that traffic for you. That's one of the new capabilities with the new firewall. So I'm hoping that you've already seen an increased improvement, and we'll continue to work on that for you. If you flip to the next slide, Tony. The next one is we purchased 2 new stands and to replace 3 older units. They were put in line on December 15th, and we have already started to make migrations. The keynote with this is the old units had really slow spin times and write latencies. So what we've done is, by going to the new units, we're taking off the load little by little. So end computing services, print services, SunGuard application task servers, and web servers have all been migrated off and onto the new SAM. The migrations that are still in progress are our SQL clusters, our file servers, and some miscellaneous servers that I won't even bother with you what they are. The key point is you should be noticing an improved experience if you have end computing devices in your classrooms. You should be noticing increased spooling times for print services. And once we actually get the SQL cluster moved, you'll be noticing an improved speed in Teacher Access Center, the admin portal, and in all SunGuard aspects. You can flip to the next slide, Tony. So just a quick little note. If you look at the bottom part of that chart, notice how that it's below, all those spikes are below where it says 20 milliseconds. Before on the old SANs, we were spiking as high as 500 and 800 milliseconds. And you will notice degradation in phone service and computing any of the devices that were attached to SAN after about 50 milliseconds. So just so you know that we're well within our thresholds. So that's it for the projects that we just had approved in November, but we are working on lots more things for you. If you could go to the next slide, Tony. So the most recent one has to do with Home Access Center. Over the course of the summer, you may have known that we upgraded to eSchool Plus 3.1, and it brought us a ton of new features in Home Access Center, one of which got us by surprise. What actually wound up happening is there was a new security way in which a class assignment average was displayed, and the default when we received the update was that it was on. Now, if you can imagine, there are thousands of configuration options within eSchool Plus. This is one that did not catch our eye until a parent brought it up to Dr. Mussoline's attention, because when we had found it, we went through and turned it off because it wasn't authorized to be turned on. When we wound up having an administrative discussion, I said, actually, there's a whole lot of things in Home Access Center. How about we go through and review these configurations? We had great content-rich conversation about all the options that are available. So we're going to go through them in a second. So we made, just so you know, administration talked, cabinet talked, we've talked to the building principal, so we have a recommendation of all those configuration changes that we're looking to make. They will most likely go into effect on February 5th. There's not a single thing a teacher has to do, and there is a communication plan out to parents. So just to review what those changes are, if you flip to the next screen, Tony. The first one is to the classwork page. And on the classwork page, we're going to turn on two pieces. One that shows the last time the classwork information was updated. So that's the last time information was entered into that section's grade book. The second piece is to show class averages, and that's the average score for every class assignment on the classwork page. If you flip to the next screen, we'll show you what that looks like. It does not come out well. But up by the header of this section where you can kind of see Honors Western Civilization, it says last updated. And then it says, I think that for that course it was 12/30/2014. And then there's an additional column that for each assignment, it has the student's average and then what the class average was for that assignment. If you can flip to the next screen, Tony. The next recommended changes were on the report card page, and we recommended, since we already showed the report card, we should show the honor roll message too. So any students that receive honor roll, it will automatically show on that page. We're also going to show a print button so that we can eventually move to an electronic report card. It would print out just like the offices would produce. So if you flip to the next page, Tony, you can see the spot where the honor roll message would be. I will admit that my sample student that I have permission to work with did not have honor roll for this marking period. But it would show right below that heading. If you flip to the next screen, Tony, perfect. One thing that we are recommending for the high schools to turn on is the transcript page. This will show a parent the ability to preview their transcript. This is something actually from my past that we did at Tredeffer in Easttown for Conestoga High School. There was a review period, and that's part of the reason we wound up having a little bit of this discussion, that we thought that that would be beneficial. Instead of finding some of those mistakes later on in the game, we can be a little bit more proactive. So if you flip, Tony, you can see what that looks like. For guidance counselors or admin staff, it looks almost very similar to the courses summary page, and then at the bottom it has what would be the GPA summary page. Okay. flip to the next screen. The next piece is the student support page. This is one I'm very excited about. As teachers know, about a year ago, it may have even been 2 years ago now, in Teacher Access Center, we joined it to IEP Plus. So you have the little special ed triangle or the little M triangle when a child has a GIP, IEP, or 504. And if you click on that, you're able to get the PDF copy. Bless you. This is now making the ability the same for the parents. There would be an added button on Home Access Center that would allow a parent to go in at any time and see the finalized IEP, GIP invitation letters, the evaluation letters or reports, the IEPs, GIPs, the 504s, and the progress reports. Now, the second part of the option on that page is that we would only show it to the living with guardians. So if a child is in a not at home situation and the living with, there's actually a flag on the contact. If that is not flagged for the guardian, we would still anticipate that the primary guardian would share that document with the non-custodial parent. You can flip to the next page. And just so you can see where that little button is, it adds a little person, it says student support, and this child did have a 504. It shows a button, and then once you click on the button, it actually opens a pop-up of the PDF copy. I didn't include that into this presentation just because it's student specific. You could flip to the next page. A couple other options that we're planning on turning on. One would be gradebook alerts. We would set it up so every parent would receive their child's current progress on a weekly basis of all their assignments and their grades, delivered right in the email. They don't even have to go into Home Access Center. In addition, there's another email alert that we're going to be turning on that's called a course average alert. If a child falls below a specified bar, it would automatically notify a parent. Flip to the next screen. Are there any questions on that area?
No questions, teachers? Are you clear about what this is doing? Just opening the Home Access Center for more transparent communication that might possibly alleviate continual emails for you with parents, and that parents will get an email alert. Parents will be able to see a variety of things in the Home Access Center that previously they had not been able to see, which we think makes that real-time communication very timely and transparent for a parent so that they can stay on top of their student if the child isn't performing as well as they think they should be. The whole interim assessment. So I'm going to know if my child is not at the standard for a particular course long before an interim progress report might have been sent to parents via the school office.
Thank you. This is amazing. I think that there will be, I can only speak for the counselors, there will not be a counselor out there that will not be thrilled that we can do that, especially like when it was last updated so parents know how recent are those grades. Those emails are fantastic. The one question I anticipate, it looks like it'll be a transcript summary. One of the things that's now happening is a few colleges in the South are now, which much to our dismay, letting the students send their own transcripts. So there is some concern on the part of counselors that our very technologically savvy young men and women might be able to doctor this. So since it'll be a transcript for summary as opposed to the actual transcript.
Correct.
Okay,
It's not an official looking transcript the way we print it out.
fantastic, so that's great. And secondly, the email to parents is fantastic because often in meetings they say, and this is surprising to us, oh, I don't know my eSchool's password, I don't ever look at that, so the email is fantastic. Will there be a notification if it goes to an email that is invalid? So will you know that and be able to get it, contact parents to update?
So that's handled a little bit differently. We actually find that out on a weekly basis from School Messenger, and we take care of notifying the buildings if that's the case.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Colleen, how will all of this be
Susex's answer.
What was that question?
When and how will the information go to teachers?
Tomorrow. Did we say that?
Yeah, principals, we'll let you.
No, I was just gonna meld it and let, that was good.
Jennifer, come on now.
Well, as you can see, there is a plan, right? So we've spoken with, as Colleen mentioned, AdCab a few weeks ago, and then principals the week before we left. And principals are getting, they got a copy of some talking points to share, and they'll get an updated version with these screenshots and everything. They're going to share it at faculty meetings tomorrow. So they're aware of that. John and I just spoke preliminarily about also getting some connect team time for teachers to sort of make sure their grade books are shored up and they understand how to use all the features that are necessary, so they're comfortable with this. And then after everyone knows about it, we will send out, or our teachers know about it, we will be sending out a district-wide communication to families, letting them know about the changes, and then also how to figure out how to get into HAC, sorry, I always want to say HAC, and if they need to update their email address, etc. And then we also have some education that's going to happen for them also, but John's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Tony, I don't know if you can pull up the link. So what we did, we decided to use a fun new technology. For some of you, it might not be new, but for Dr. McNeil, it's very exciting. So we are starting to
I'm all over this. We're going to do this for
we are starting to utilize Powtoon. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. So we're going to pull up a link. This was just a draft that Jen and I made yesterday of kind of some of the features for HAC and also kind of explain where we're going. So our goal
You
is...
did this in how long, like an hour?
Well, here's one important thing to note about Powtoon, if you want to use it. It does not auto-save. So we did this 2 times just to make sure it was perfect. We are looking at utilizing this type of technology on the district website, where the parents will be able to have this fun way of being able to see some of the new features with that. So enjoy.
think there's a way to do it, but right now, what we thought, Suzanne, was we would give the access to parents. Parents could certainly give that access to their child if they wanted to, leave the power to the parent. But we do have the ability to turn this on for students. I don't know if Art here yet. Some of our high school principals of kids that push themselves, Suzanne, kind of felt that this might force kids to push themselves more, might be good, bad, or indifferent. So what we thought to begin with is to give this power to the parents. And if the parents want to give it to their child as a way to motivate, they can. But there's an ability to do this.
And it maybe it's an option that they
Yeah.
choose or not. It's something to consider. Like I said, I think it's fabulous for the parents to know, but the students are the ones who are responsible for holding up their grades.
Yeah. And I agree, you know, the whole part of this, guys, is that we're moving rapidly into this world right here that I'm holding in my hands. We're moving rapidly into this world and rapidly away from this world. So that's what this is all about. If we could eliminate for 900 teachers interim reports, which I believe we can do by pushing this out weekly. Now we're giving parents a weekly progress. We're not giving them an interim progress report. We're giving them a weekly progress report. So why do we need interim reports? And then the next thing is, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, tomorrow, but we eliminate report cards. And report cards are accessible 24/7 on here. If you want to print it out, we'll make it nice. You can print it out, just like you can at home for anything else that we do anymore. We could be moving to that where we could have the report card for anybody that wants it. Sure. But many people, and especially this group of people that are moving into our elementary schools right now as parents, are just relying on this. My world, my group of people might not be as reliable or as relying on this, but the people that we're going to serve are. So that's where we're moving. We're not doing it tomorrow, but everybody needs to know why we're doing this, and where we're moving to. Jane, you were.
Well, a couple of things. Suzanne, you make a great point. I think in the short run, teachers can certainly choose to share the median grade, the mid-grade. Years ago, I had a teacher at downtown middle school. When two of my three children had it, gave it to the kids, gave it to the parents. And, this is what your child got on the test, this is the mean, this is the average. So in the short run, teachers can certainly share that. My concern is, it's great that you're identifying emails that are rejected and we're sending it to the building, but where does it go? I'm not looking for an answer tonight, today, just a thought. Where's it going to go from there? Whose desk is it sitting on? Who's going to follow up? It's great that we've identified it, but where do we go from there? And two, there is still a very small minority population that doesn't have this access. So again, not looking for an answer today, but I think we need to seriously consider how we're going to reach out. Because sometimes those are our children that are struggling because they don't have access. So how do we help the kids? How do we help the parents to move that forward? So maybe, ESL is one of the great ways. Maybe we need to start brainstorming how we get that in there. Because, as our superintendent has taught the board, just kill them with information and then they can't complain that they don't know what's going on. So, I kind of feel like that's where we're going. Parents need to know, and then there's no deniability once they know.
Well, and we help our teachers out too in getting rid of some really tough things that they've had.
Absolutely.
Colleen, what are the parents going to see? Is it going to be an average that's going to come to them? So I'm just thinking, the kindergarten parent and the panic that they're going to receive when how our standards are different each trimester. So what would be a 3 proficiency first trimester
classwork page within, or the classwork page within the Access Center. So it actually goes through and looks exactly like the assignment description, the potential score, the student score, forget the rest of the indicators. We can send out a sample of what that would look like, and I can try and see if I can get a sample of what it will look like in the standards. The help in eSchool shows us what it looks like for course-based grading, but not standards-based grading. I can see if I can get a sample from them for that.
Well, I think John and Jen, if we're going to work with our teachers, we need to show every level what this looks like. So it's not whether I think we have to do that. What does it look like? What's a parent going to see?
Absolutely.
And how will it look? And then this way you guys can get a shot at what teaching we might have to do.
So would it be course average? So for example, for math, is it going to be course average for math, or is it going to be standard by standard? You know, they had.
It's not the course average, it's an assignment average.
Just assignments.
Remember the alert, is what a parent gets an alert.
It's an assignment average.
Oh, you mean the alert
Oh, the email.
when their average falls below a certain level? Oh,
I can send you copies of what the email alert would look like.
One of the things we wanted to try to stay away from was that course average for that type of comparison. So let's take a look at that. We could turn that on. We didn't just wanted students to compare with each other, with themselves. I should say not with each other, with themselves. Right.
So at the elementary level, you've never sent an interim progress report. So that's something secondary has sent a month or so before, 5 weeks before report cards come out. So that's what you were talking about, that preliminary report, right, Stacy? You're not talking about the assignment average.
Just any of the alerts the parents will get. You just don't want to scare them because of the way our grading system is set up.
Well, what we were thinking about is you're only afraid if you don't know or you don't understand. So it does mean clear communication with parents. We wish that more parents were present at these meetings so they could ask questions from a parent lens. But maybe everybody has to see it, to your point, what it looks like, and from a parent's lens so that you could ward off any fear from someone about what's happening, because that will create more communication for
And
you.
the course average alert would only go out to a threshold below a certain threshold. So that's something that we're also still working at. That's more like the failure notices that's happening in the secondary level. That makes sense?
Suzanne?
And as to the concern about parents notify, especially elementary, because I hear what you're saying loud and clear. Maybe you can encourage your home and schools or whatever to have that as a topic at their meeting. So, and that helps home and school because it helps draw out crowds for those meetings. They're sometimes hard to get people to. And it's a chance to, you did that when you had the ESARs rolled out eons ago. So. And I just think that's a good way to get it out to the parents, and then kind of take a little, that way the other principal come and talk to the parents about the changes or however you guys want to handle it. But I think that's a great way to get the parents informed quickly.
We also plan to do podcasts that will be available on the website for each feature. So this is what it is, here are some things to think about, and hearing Stacy's comment, it might be a good idea to even separate further, if you're a K parent, watch this. If you're a 1 through 3 parent, watch that. So we can take that in mind and differentiate those podcasts accordingly.
Maybe even.
Or up and encore.
Yeah, because we only see the kids once a week at the elementary level, so the grades are going to be the same grade for a few weeks in a row.
As long as parents know that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, part of the communication, we make sure that that's part of the communication, that the grades aren't going to change a lot in encores as often.
Right. And so that would be important to note on the encore.
Thanks. Any other questions on this? Okay, Colleen.
Okay, Tony, if you could bring back up that PowerPoint real quick.
could just speak to them. That's fine. There are a couple projects that are on the horizon that I did want you to be aware of. One was automated attendance notification. This is something that we've been doing a pilot at for about 2 years now down at Downingtown West, in which if a child is absent for the day, because the secondaries do period attendance, it's actually, I believe, the first 3 periods, we automatically phone and email a parent to make sure that they are aware, all guardians on file, their home number, their cell phone number, and an email. We'll be looking at expanding that district-wide. We'll be getting actually at the elementary level is what we've been asked to do. So we're going to begin, we've never done an elementary pilot. We're going to be starting that at Euclid Hills and then be looking at expanding that. The second is athletic eligibility. Again, teachers are keeping all of the information in their grade books at the secondary level. We do have the opportunity to start athletic eligibility, and we'll be working with that with Earl Burnham. And then lastly is electronic report cards. Dr. Mussolini alluded to the probability of going to a paperless system. We'll be looking at attempting that this spring and working with a pilot group of actually employees who also have their students within the district. We'll be looking to do that in 2 different methods. Secondary will be electronic availability online and sending them out a school messenger type notification to let them know that it's available and a link to go in and log into Home Access Center. For the elementary, it has to be a little bit different because we have a customized report card at the elementary level. So we'll be providing that to them through e-delivery. So the parents will receive a PDF document into their email account. We'll be looking at starting that this spring with a confined group, seeing how that goes, and then be elaborating that from there. Our hope is to do a pilot, if you will, for 14-15 this spring, looking for an optional opt-out via 15-16, and then 16-17 going all electronic.
So we're gonna do both this year, right? So you give them the options, so they have the paper, right?
Well, for the pilot group, that's
The
only,
pilot group, just the
yes.
pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And then graduate. And that's
Correct.
what I mean, we know that people like the report card, and absolutely, we agree with that. But we also know that we're moving into a different mode. So we'll do it slowly, but just so everybody understands, this is kind of where we're headed. And that's what we want you to understand, big picture, where we're headed, digitally.
Sure. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Other questions? Great, thank you.
Before we move to the next item, Mrs. Craney, if I could just thank Mrs. Yenzer on behalf of the Project Lead the Way and Technology Education Department. I'm sure Mr. Spears is jumping up and down as well. Thank you, Colleen, and thanks to Mr. Lill and his folks for everything you did to make those facilities at the high schools the top-notch programs that we knew they could be. We really appreciate it. We also want to thank you and the Board Technology Committee because you made it a priority in the work that you were doing. So Mrs. Simonelli, Mrs. Craney, and of course our President, Mrs. Bertoni, thank you. The faces on those, the smiles on those kids' faces, I mean, just speaks volumes.
How about the emails we got from the teachers? I mean, we have 2 or 3 emails from
yes,
teachers
we
that
did. Mr.
are elated.
Robinson.
I mean, yeah, just extremely.
Mr. Lister, yeah. Yeah, great job. Thank you.
Dr. Neal, I think we're going to go back and now discuss the district calendar.
Thank you, Mrs. Cranny, and thank you, everyone, for the input that you provided. We did, as you know, have discussion at our previous Board Curriculum Council, and then the school board convened and had comments, and then also many thanks to Craig Crusion and DAEA membership who also provided input. This is draft 7 of the calendar, which is not too bad, not too bad. The only change that's on draft 7 is the one that we sort of said for sure we were going to do at the end of BCC last time, which was switching Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur so that we had the holiday later in the month and the in-service day was earlier in the month. So we did go ahead and do that in September. As you can see, the 14th is now the full day in service, and the 23rd is now the full day holiday. Tony, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the changes document, just to review where we stood in our last discussion, and then we'll go over the input from our teachers. These are the last time we were here, we talked about several things. As you can see, we made the Rosh Hashanah change. We had some discussion about the early dismissals and parent conferences. We did actually change this already so that 7th and 8th grade does have additional time for conferences on that calendar, but that was also on the calendar I first brought to BCC. And then if we could scroll down, Tony, to the next page, you can see I also added the board input. We did say we would continue discussing the grade K to 6 evening conferences. We had talked about moving them to Thursday so that it would not have the issue of people trying to get home, have dinner, and get back in time for conferences when that was not enough time to do so. And if you can keep scrolling down to the next page, Tony, we did still have a few things up in the air. The 9/9 early dismissal, and then the snow days. There was a suggestion brought by the board that we change the order of the snow makeup days. Before, we were going to make up Thursday, or I should say sort of lose Thursday before spring break first, and then lose Monday after that. At the suggestion of the board, we're reversing that so that we would lose Monday first, and then lose Thursday. No matter what, we have Friday as a holiday, and we do not have that as a snow emergency makeup day. So Tony, if you wouldn't mind, can you bring up the DASD calendar feedback? And Craig is here, so please feel free to jump in, Craig, if you'd like. Thank you for compiling these results and putting this information out to our teachers. There were, as you can see, several questions, and then we did have many comments. So what is more important, getting out early or having having days off throughout the year? 52.5% want to get out early, and so you'll see that sort of echoed throughout. Would you rather have the Friday before Labor Day off or get out earlier in June? We did have a majority who wished to have the Friday before Labor Day, and that was echoed in the comments as well. Third, we have, would you rather start before or after Labor Day? I think I probably could have predicted this one. We have an after Labor Day preference, which is a little difficult to reconcile. I mean, I think we would all, that would be nice. But it's a little difficult to reconcile with number 1, which is wanting to get out early. So, those things can all be true. I can want that and still want to get out early. I understand that, certainly, as a reaction, or a feeling, I should say. And then a spring break is addressed. Do you prefer a week off at spring break or an earlier date in June? And this one, I don't know, personally, was a surprise to me. Everybody said earlier end date again. So, here it is. How long should spring break be? We did have, sort of a split of the majority say, Craig, I think, was that top one 4 days? We have 3 up there twice. I was assuming that's
No, it should be 3, 5,
3, 5, 4. Okay. So we do have, a majority of people saying somewhere between 3 and 5 days. And it is, right now it's 4 days with no snow emergency days. So we're sort of falling in line there. And then rather have conferences where they presently are or during the week of Thanksgiving. And a majority, yes, a majority, 51.52% prefer to keep them where they are. However, we did see in the comment section that a few people did mention that they would prefer to move them to the week of Thanksgiving, and that first week in November is very disruptive. So if we just go below, I just tried to sort of code some of the comments and look for trends here. We had 57 separate comments, and 11 of them were mentioning that it would be much easier for travel, both for families as well as teachers, to have either the day before holidays or a half day before holidays, notably either Thanksgiving or Christmas Eve off, because of how things fall next year. We don't have the day before off. So that was a request made by 11. There were 12 comments that really spoke strongly about what teachers felt was a negative impact on students due to interruptions that come from the professional development early dismissals, as well as the professional development full days. We did have a comment or two saying that they liked having the professional development days next to each other, but there were people who felt strongly about the interruptions that they caused to the student instructional day. I pulled out these. There were 3 that asked about keeping that Monday after Easter, and I just pulled that out because I knew that was something the board had requested as well. So then evening conferences is something we still have on the table, and I actually got an update. I got one more comment after I made this little chart. We had 3 people go specifically comment to please keep the same day as conferences, and then 3 people say change it. So that does not help us at all in making our decision, but we do know that it is evenly divided. And then I also wanted to note that teachers, several of them, thanked Craig and the membership for making this survey and allowing them the opportunity to provide input, which was nice of people to even think of that. So I guess that sort of takes us back to the calendar itself. Before we go there, though, questions, comments?
How many people replied to the survey total?
A little over 300.
And coming from a person who sends out surveys, that's a pretty good return. It's a pretty good return, yeah. And the deadline was tight, so we thank those people who did find the time to complete the survey. Any other questions before we sort of go back to those changes? I see people chatting, but no official questions for the group. Okay, so, Tony, can you go back to the calendar changes document? The second page, please, and thank you. Okay, there we are. So, we need to decide evening conferences for K to 6. Again, the Wednesday, what was originally recommended at last BCC was that we move the evening conferences to Thursday. Discussion.
What happens to the 9 to 12 evening conferences? Isn't that Thursday as well?
It is.
Different time.
Yeah, 6 to 8 versus 7 to 9. I'm not hearing any objections or strenuous objections.
I'm just a little confused or concerned if you've got kids in different levels, because from a parent perspective, I'm not sure that's going to work.
And I mean, I mentioned at the last meeting, a couple of years ago, we asked for it to go the other way, so I'm not sure. It used to be over the 3 days. We had Tuesday, all day Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday evening, and we asked for it to be condensed because it was so many days of conferences in a row, and we're going back to that, so I'm just throwing that out there again.
Our issue was using that Wednesday time. So if you're not going to use the Wednesday time and people get home to pick up their kids, have dinner, and come back, then that's fine. But if you want to use that Wednesday time that takes you up to 4:30, it's a big, we heard from a lot of our members that said that they can't go home and then come back by 6 o'clock. You're going to have conferences until 4:45 or 4:40, whatever the conference is.
And there's no reason we can't do Tuesday till 4:30, and then Wednesday go home at regular time?
It's because of
using that time for
But it's open
conferences
till 7.
is an issue.
Any thoughts about Julie's suggestion, as long as we could still do the MOU requesting to use that time, Craig? Does that still fit?
Sure. Yeah, as long as they're not in the same day.
Right.
Right, so that would be.
Yeah. So then maybe keeping evening conferences where they are on Wednesday so that we don't have any conflict with high school conferences, and then making Tuesday the day that teachers stay later to do conferences. But we're already here Tuesday, and that's election day.
Yeah, and people are gonna
So
have-
conferences would be all day Tuesday and Tuesday night?
Not Tuesday night, just Tuesday till 4:30, and it's for elementary, instead of Tuesday until
That's
3:40.
only 40 extra minutes.
Yeah.
There,
Probably,
you-
and you're already there, so why would that be?
Any conflicts with that being election day? I mean, you'd be going home after that. It's not like you'd have to come back for evening conferences that night. I mean, this is an we're talking about elementary conferences here, so any other elementary teachers have ideas about that? Any elementary principals, thoughts?
So it would be Tuesday till 4:30, Wednesday from.
Regular
1 to
day,
3:30,
right.
1:30 to 3:30.
And then back for evening conferences. Okay, all right, so
Would the hour after school be on Tuesday for everybody?
sounds like we would need to be standard across the district for that.
Everybody K through.
Well, K through 6, right.
You saying K through 12 or K through 6?
Oh, because
Well, I mean,
K
we
through
normally
12.
don't
Yeah, have
have
to
an
switch
hour
it.
after school for one group on one day and.
And an hour for the
some
next group
another
on the
day.
next
So
day.
it would be consistent across.
Well, there
But
wouldn't
this
be,
is for conferences, it's not an extra hour.
yeah, but for the
Extra
secondary folks, they could make that work, Jan, no? They could make Tuesday work.
We
for
usually
principals,
do
right?
that day, right?
We do that, we push days before
I'm
having.
not saying we can't, I just.
But I'm saying, I think we could make what you're saying work for everybody, K through 12. No?
We have secondary principals here, secondary teachers, anyone weighing in on that? So your conferences are Monday night in the elementary, at the middle level? So there would be Monday night conferences, and then all day, Tuesday late, and then Wednesday regular. And then high school, yours is not until Thursday, so you're Tuesday late, Wednesday regular leaving time, and then Thursday evening conferences.
We usually have professional development for high school on that
Oh, right. Mhm.
Monday, or Tuesday and Wednesday in
Mhm.
the afternoon.
Mhm.
Tuesday.
But we will have it Tuesday afternoon, so they could just, that would work.
That would work.
That would work.
The hours that we would have had on Wednesday in the afternoon.
Exactly, so that would work with 9 through 12. What's that?
What was Wednesday?
Wednesday's leaving at a regular teacher dismissal time. Not a Wednesday dismissal time, a regular teacher dismissal
So it would
time.
be a regular day of school?
Regular,
After the full day of conferences on Tuesday?
it's not, it's still a half a day when school.
No, it's a full day, grade K to 8, right?
On Wednesday?
On Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday is no school for students, Wednesday is an early dismissal.
Oh, and then conferences up until 3 o'clock?
Right.
But high school doesn't do conferences.
Right, high school does PD, so we could do a shorter PD that day and a longer PD the day before for high school, which actually might be beneficial.
So that changes the Tuesday PD time, because usually our PD days are 8, right? Whatever your, it's the same time for everybody. It's 8 to 11, 12:30 to 3:30 on a PD day, right? So we're going to change that then, because the high school has professional development in the afternoon.
That's right.
So that means that if their morning conferences for parents are 8 to 11, then their PD time is 12:30 to 4:30? Till 4?
They,
Till what?
yeah, I would have to add up the minutes.
Is it
But
an
yeah,
hour and a half
About
more?
4:30. It's not an hour and a half more. It's 65 minutes after the student day, which translates to about 45 minutes later. I would need to add it up in my head, but yeah, it would be.
It'll be something
45
like 4:30 for professional development for the high school.
Okay.
And then they get out early on Wednesday.
Right, they get out regular teacher dismissal time on Wednesday. Okay. All right, great. We have a decision, okay? And then if we scroll down,
So just like November 4th, the high school does not get out regular dismissal time because that's 12.
no, not Tuesday, right?
Wednesday
Wednesday.
is an early dismissal. So
Right,
what-
the teachers would get out at regular teacher dismissal time.
not an early dismissal time.
Right, because they're going out the early dismissal time on Tuesday, even though it's not an early dismissal. Is this being recorded? Did that make sense?
I think
It
the
makes sense in
times
my
are
head.
important because the early dismissal day for high school starts at 12:30
Right,
and normally till
till
3:30.
3:30, right.
So then it's till 12:30 till,
Whatever time the regular dismissal, 2:40, that's the usual. So we'll make sure that's all clear with the minutes lined up and all of that information to get out to
I
everybody.
tweeted it out.
Oh, good, excellent. Did you get a
Oh,
picture
that's
right
good.
here?
You're doing well. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, and can we scroll down? Thank you. And then we continue to sort of hear the issue that interrupting a week with early dismissals can be, notably it's disruptive. It's a lot of planning for teachers and the class periods are shorter and it's difficult to fit in all of the curriculum. And I know we had a recommendation from PTC that despite that for regularity for childcare purposes, for planning purposes for teachers, to just maintain that it's this, whatever, if it's the second Wednesday, it's the second Wednesday. So I am proposing that we, despite the fact that it does interrupt 2 weeks, that we retain the 9/9 early dismissal date, rather than trying to push it to a Friday. We know that got very bad reviews from this year, and rather than interrupt another week with it.
I just have a question. Did you say that you did change the snow day order? Because it didn't look like it was changed at the.
On draft 7.
I actually am not in favor of that snow day change. I think the Monday is more important than another day, but anyway, yeah, if that was your intention, I don't think it's actually.
It was my intention, thank you for bringing that to my attention. This is why I ask a lot of people to look at this calendar, but perhaps we should discuss it, because as you mentioned, not necessarily everyone is in favor of it. Any discussion of losing the Thursday first instead of the Monday first? That's how we originally had it, and then we had a board member request lose the Monday. Yeah, right, but also the two of Monday and Thursday, which one here? Yeah, Wednesday really lose first, but.
Let me tell you that in my curriculum meetings, often travel time comes up, that the request would be that the committee consider the ability for them to travel with families that, so Monday might, to the point Stan, Monday might be preferable to people
Holiday is
travel
actually
on Sunday, so that might accommodate, that's just a comment I hear a lot, that's why people did respond, I think, the half day before and the half day on the 23rd, because they need to travel like everybody else. Exactly. And safety.
I agree.
I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. So is that the suggestion to change that back?
Or just leave it.
Right, which I sort of knew anyway, so I didn't, just double check and make sure it says what we want it to say. Okay, all right. So our intention now is that we would keep Monday for as long as humanly possible. And maybe there won't be any snow, and maybe we will have all of these days as our spring break. Well, didn't get very
We were
far.
on time today. We were
That's
here
right,
today.
we're here. Doing work. Yeah.
But we
Not
were all
of us.
here. We were all here.
Okay. Any other comments before we close the calendar discussion? Pushing my luck. All right, thank you. Good night, thank you.
Okay, so back to the middle school. Update on the new middle school configurations.
okay, Dr. Deglio and Mr. Ross.
We have 2 topics to discuss today for this month's update. We will be quick and just give you the main points so we can get through all of our updates today. Today we're going to be talking about the house system and the Downingtown Unity Cup idea, which will be taking place at the middle level. The house system is in effect this year. That's one of the changes that did go into effect for the 14-15 school year. This was, from a communication standpoint, rolled out to teachers during the second half of the year last year to explain how it worked. Over the summer, we communicated it to families and kids via the website, Facebook, Twitter, school messenger, etc. We've been doing that as this year has gone on as well, as we've done some house activities. The concept is simple. With the 6th grade center, we have added another transition into our students' transition pattern, essentially. They're going from elementary to the 6th grade center to the middle school to the high school. So it's an entirely additional transition. To limit that in a 2-year building, we're running a house system. And what that means is, as you know in middle school, we have teams. So a house would consist of a team in 7th grade and a team in 8th grade. The students who are on the team in 7th grade move to the house team in 8th grade. What this does is allow familiarity to be communicated with the kids and the teachers at both the 7th grade and 8th grade level. Gives the 7th and 8th grade teachers a chance to talk and get to know the students a year before they're even on their team. And it also allows, take our special education students and our gifted students, for example, a smooth continuity from their case managers in 7th grade to 8th grade. So there's a lot of benefits from the transitional aspect, which is helpful. It's also helpful in that they're going to have more time to develop relationships with the students who are on their team, hopefully more meaningful relationships and not just the back and forth passing of friends that sometimes takes place during the middle school years. One of the other fun pieces to this, and this kind of will lead into John's description of the Downingtown Unity Cup, is that the house system allows for fun competitions to take place and in-house competition, whether it's from an achievement perspective or from just a good time perspective. So if you have if you have 3 houses or house teams within the school, House A can challenge House B to different activities. This is something we've been doing throughout the first marking period, and our very competitive teachers, sometimes more so than the kids, have embraced this. And again, it also allows for the achievement, the data, to be looked at across grade levels, from 7th grade to 8th grade, with a more holistic picture of the students in that manner. So basically, it eases transitions. It allows for some more competition in a healthy way between teams, and allows students an easier time throughout their 2 years at the middle level in 7th and 8th grade. And John is going to talk about the Unity Cup.
Dr. Mendeglio, before you leave the house system, so are teachers looping with their students? So I teach 7th grade and I move with those students to 8th grade?
No, this is about as close as you can get to looping without looping, basically. The idea is that the 7th grade teachers have some common time or just hallway time to talk to the 8th grade teachers to get to know the kids who are going to be coming to them. We have our physical layout at both buildings set up a little bit differently, but the idea is the same in that in one hallway you will have 7th grade House A and 8th grade House A. They might be next to each other going down the hallway this way, or the teachers might be across the hallway from each other. So basically, you're breeding a community idea, community participation. The team rooms are located close by. So we're trying to put those teachers and those kids in the same area as much as we can, so that way we can start building that familiarity.
I see. So there would be a 7th grade team and 8th grade team in one house and the same in another house.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Simonelli has a question, Dr. Mendeglio.
Yes. Have you surveyed the kids about how they like it now that it's more, I know at the beginning of the year it wasn't necessarily very popular.
Mostly because they didn't understand it.
Right.
The students on the whole have been extremely receptive. We've only had 3 actual parent complaints across both middle schools. Whether a complaint we find to be based in good scientific research or just emotionally charged is obviously going to be different. The most difficult complaint we've had about the house system has been a parent who was upset that their child would be in the same hallway for 2 years. They wanted their child to be exposed to different hallways in the building. There was no addressing that. But the other ones were legitimate questions. You know, what happens with lunches? You know, what if there's a bad matchup with the teachers, things don't work out, or a bullying situation with kids? 90% of the time we can resolve that, but of course we're flexible. So if the kid needs to be moved, we would obviously, you know, move them in that case. So, and one of the things we've done administratively, we worked very hard 2 years ago to adjust some of our teaming and prepare for the 6th grade center opening, and we did some very good preparation trying to match up the houses as well. So we wanted to make sure the teams that went together from 7th grade to 8th grade had some teachers that complemented each other and some teachers that contrasted each other a little bit so the kids had a good experience.
So the Downtown Unity Cup kind of goes part and parcel with the house system idea in that it was initiated kind of by the creation of the 6th grade center, believe it or not. As Nick said, the kids going through 3 transitions in 4 years, kind of what led to the house system. What led to the Downtown Unity Cup was the whole idea that our kids are now going to be in one building together across a grade span. That there's now one building that houses all Downtown Area School District kids that doesn't have friendly rivals from the other side of the school district. So in a conversation that Dr. Deglio and I had with some of our teacher leaders and our administrative teams, was that we wanted to try to take advantage of that and that try to build some more unity. No reflection on our high school friends, but there's a lot of friendly rivalry that goes back and forth between the high schools. And we want to try to take the idea that the kids are together one year and allow them to be rivals, but also try to continue those relationships as they get to know one another at the 6th grade center. So we're going to try to have more events across the 2 schools, and this was going to be the culminating event. This year, this is going to be the sole event, and it's both a unity event and it's a fundraiser, all in one. And here's how that works. My fellow Delaware County friends may have heard of the Potter Cup. P-O-T-T-E-R, and I have to admit, I stole this idea. One of my good friends is the principal at Haverford Middle School, which is one of the 2 schools that participates. Haverford Middle School and the middle school in Marple Newtown, Paxton Hollow Middle School. They have this annual event called the Potter Cup. It's actually later on this month, where they have the athletic teams from the 2 schools play against each other, and they do it as a fundraiser for Alex's Lemonade, and it's this whole day event that takes place at one of the high schools. Well, we're tweaking that a little bit, and rather than just making it our athletic teams, we're going to get all the kids involved in the competition end. We're going to try to come up with different kind of field events, maybe kind of make it both a field day, which I know Lionel Middle School used to do years ago before I came out here, but try to have field events where the kids are competing against one another, but also having time where the teachers are competing against one another, kind of putting the adults out there for the kids to see as well, but making it a full day event, and it's a fundraiser for Alex's Lemonade stand, which we've already started at Lionville. I don't know if you guys started any of your fundraising stuff for that yet, but we've already had folks from Alex's Lemonade come to our building and kind of help kick it off to the kids. They're really well received. I've had a lot of kids that have come up to me very excited, and a lot of teachers that have come up very excited about the idea of having this district-wide thing that takes place between the 2 middle schools and hopefully creating a really cool tradition that's something the kids can look forward to as 6th graders, knowing that when they go to 7th and 8th grade, they're still going to have contact with one another and trying to, you know, maintain those friendships and those rapport that they get to build as 6th graders, and kind of build on that friendly competition, but also having time to spend together. So we're actually it's going to take place on May the 28th, I believe. I should know that because that's my anniversary. And it's going to be at, we did get permission to have it at Kottmeyer, correct? Yes, it's going to be at Kottmeyer Stadium. We're going to bring the kids down from both buildings. We haven't determined the schedule that we're going to run yet, but we're going to run something along the lines of like a shortened schedule in the morning, but try to get the kids down there during the day at some point and have a couple of hours at Kottmeyer Stadium of these field events taking place. We've had building level committee meetings on this, where we've got people from each building, teachers that are willing to kind of step up and have ideas and put themselves out there. And we're hoping in the near future, maybe even at the next PD day, to have a joint DMS-LMS committee meeting where we can begin to share ideas across the 2 buildings to plan for this at the end of May. Yes?
Can I throw a monkey wrench here, just to think about for next year. Next year, you will have 7th graders that will have been with the other 7th graders. And rather than make it a complete competition, maybe you can run a couple events where they can sign up with their friends from the other building and make it, you know, because next year you only have one class. But
Yeah, we're trying to do baby steps this year. I mean, if anybody's familiar with the, if you're familiar with the Potter Cup, it's been going on for 10 years and it's very, very intricate. There's a lot of things that happen. So we're each year going to build on it and make minor variations, minor tweaks to it. So that's a possibility.
Right, my point is that next year and then for every successive year, these kids will have spent 6th grade together. So maybe a couple of events, not all of them. I understand you want to create the unity.
Yeah, the whole idea is that whichever school wins the most points gets, we're going to actually have a cup, a trophy that building is going to get. So we can try to build something like that into it as a part of it.
But something where they can compete
I understand.
with their
Understood.
as opposed to against.
This sounds really exciting. What a great idea. Because you think about kids are together for an entire year and then split up.
And we've already told the kids about it, and they're super pumped. And they're super pumped at the idea of just, you know, being in Kottmeyer and having kind of a field day event. They're super excited about that. And obviously the current 7th and 8th graders don't have that 6th grade summer connection, but hopefully as we get the kids coming up in subsequent years, they're going to have that connection. They're going to be looking forward to seeing their friends that, you know, they had so much contact with when they were all together in one building.
I've already put it on my calendar, so I'm assuming you'll send us some more specific
yeah, we'll send invitations out. Yep.
I guess I'm just asking you to consider, you have 2 years before you have a complete building of former 6th graders, that it be more a unity thing and not a competition. Because when they get to high school, they're going to compete. It's a given, and it's...
We're trying to get the best of both of those things.
Right, so
we want them to have pride in their own school, so that's the competition part. But we want them to do that in a friendly way with their friends from the 6th grade.
But I would just ask you to consider something.
We'll consider it, but my point is that then what are they competing for? What if they're all together, what's the competition?
Well, you can do yellow and you can make it 2 different colors. It doesn't matter.
Well, the other part is, which we didn't really touch on, is that this year it's a single event. Next year, and how the Potter Cup actually works, it's several events throughout the course of the year, some of which are combined fundraising, just different types of things that are similar to that. But the overarching goal, obviously, this year would be Alex's Lemonade Stand. We stay with that maybe in following years. And that's where the big victory comes from. And the competition part is just...
Work in interscholastic sports, keep track over the year, who won the DMS LMS 7th grade soccer game, who won the DMS LMS 8th grade soccer game, and use that as a point total throughout the year.
Yeah, those combined.
To me, I'd rather see us compete to get the most money for Alex's Lemonade as opposed to...
That's what we're doing. That's part of the competition too, is which school raises the most money.
Why are we making it?
Because it's fun.
Well, they're going to have it in the high school, so we bring them all together in the 6th grade, and now you're...
Other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Dr. Indeglio. Great work. Oh, good, Tony. Yes, we do have the correct item on the agenda that you're looking at on the projector. We initially had thought we were going to be giving a report on the PSAT, the SAT, and the ACT reports. However, that data is not yet available, so Kelly did a very nice follow-up, and she's going to do PBOS projections. We hear a lot about PBOS projections, PBOS projection reports, so we thought it would be helpful for everyone in Curriculum Council and then your departments to know exactly what this means. So, thank you, Mrs. Burns.
So like Dr. Neal said, today I'm going to talk a little bit about PBOS student projections, how the state perceives that schools and teachers should be using this data to increase student learning, and how teachers and schools in the school district actually are using this data to help our students learn more. So here's some information about the PBOS student projections and who you can get those projections for. They are generated for students in 4th through 8th grade and for all of the Keystone tests, as you'll see up there. And what it allows us to do is to run a report that tells the students what's their percentage, what's their achievement process, what is their probability of them being advanced on the next set of state tests. And what it does is it takes the students' projections based on how similar students did. So, and those would be students who have already taken the test. And those students are similar in their testing history, so students who get similar test scores throughout the state testing system, which also takes into account similar demographics, because students with similar demographics tend to test in similar fashion to get similar results. So that takes care of the statistical analysis for the similar demographics. The projections are not available for third grade because third grade is the first year the students test. There would be no way of creating projections for third grade students because they haven't had a history of state testing at that point. How they create those projections is for grade 4. They use the 2 data points for math and reading from grade 3 in order to do the projections for math, reading, and science. For grade 5 through the Keystone exams, they use at least 3 prior test scores across subjects in order to create and predict how students are going to do on the Keystone exams.
And I think that's a very important thing to think about, because if we're predicting reading scores, it's not just the reading PSSA. We're looking at math and science as well as reading scores.
Right, so, and also with math, we look at math and reading and we say, this is what students are projected to do, and we make decisions from there. So the reports can be ran in 2 different ways. First of all, it would be a single testing grade, and what that would basically be is from the year before. So that report would say, okay, this is how the kids who were in 7th grade last year are projected to do if they take the 8th grade Keystone. So we would run a report such as that for tracking or placement purposes. The other type of test that you can run is the single enroll grade, which is for this year. The kids are sitting in our current courses. How are they projected to do on those courses? And a teacher might run that report just in order to see how students are to do. So if they want to do some flexible grouping, if they want to set up some RTI groups, if they want to set up some special programs after school, before school tutoring, they can look and say, okay, well, there's 3 students in my class who have less than a 40% chance of being proficient on this year's test. And say, okay, those students I want to work with. You can create these reports for schools and for districts. These reports I ran for district, that way nobody feels as if their school was singled out. Next.
So I wonder, Kelly, if it could be used, you know how you sometimes have that child in your classroom that you think, I know this kid is capable of more than what they're producing in my class. And you just need some solid data to verify what you think is happening in your classroom. Could I use it in that way as a teacher?
Sure. Yeah, because it'll tell you, maybe they're not a big performing class, but they're a high performer on tests. So this is what the report actually looks like, and this is for a single tested grade. What I did is I took the 7th graders from last year and made a projection to see what percentage of the students would be proficient in the Algebra 1 test for this year. So what it does is it takes all their past history, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, it rolls it in and makes an 8th grade projection of how it's going to do on the Algebra 1. And this is just for proficiency. You can also run it for advanced. So that green group up there, which is the greater than or equal to 70%, there are about 29% of the students currently in Algebra 1, or we hope are in Algebra 1, that have that percentage of chance of being proficient on the Algebra 1 Keystone this year. We have 17% of our students are between 40% and 70%. Unfortunately, we have 25% of our students who have less than a 40% chance of being proficient on the Keystone this year. 2% of our students don't have enough information. They lack sufficient information, which means they don't have enough PA history testing data in order for them to create some kind of projection. So maybe they just came to Downingtown this year, maybe they were from another state, maybe they were in a private school prior to this, and they just don't have enough data in order to create a projection. Also, if you see the next thing, which is nice, is the students at or above proficiency says that 18% of our students who are in 8th grade right now have already tested at proficient or higher on the Keystone test. Those students, they don't make projections for because they already took the test. Next, what does this tell us? And in some ways, this is a little concerning, I think, if the projection probability of scoring in the proficient or above category is. So if it's greater than 70%, that kid is pretty much smooth sailing. They're probably going to score proficient or above. That's highly highly likely that that will happen. So we continue with the students' current program. We make sure we know what works, so we continue that with those students. And those students are probably on a path towards scoring proficient or above. For students who are between 40% and 70% chance of being proficient or above, it may or may not occur. If you look at a student who has a 50% chance of being proficient on a test, it really all depends. It could be on the day. And that's what this test is telling us. So it says the recommendation in that situation is to investigate and implement adjustments to students' program to increase the likelihood of scoring proficient or advanced. So what that basically says is if this student continues to receive, quote unquote, the average schooling experience, this is the probability that this is going to occur. So you need to do something differently. You can't keep doing what you've always done and expect different outcomes because this kid is not working for this kid. And then we have a group that is less than 40%, so their chance of scoring proficient or above is unlikely, and we need to definitely investigate significant changes to this student's program in order to increase this student's likelihood of being proficient or advanced. So under a certain set of conditions, if we continue to do this, this is the likelihood this student is going to be at least proficient, if not better. So what this tells us when we look at this data, this is our 8th grade algebra, our 8th grade students who are being projected to how they will do in Algebra 1. Notice the different numbers are a little different than the 7th grade group, which was the last one we looked at, projecting to 8th grade. This is the actual 8th graders we have now. So there are a few students different one way or the other because we gained students and we lost students. So our numbers are slightly different in some regards. We still, however, though, have 18% of our students in 8th grade currently who have already passed the Keystone in Algebra 1. So that is a good thing. From this, and I did put it up there because this then becomes private information, you see those blue links, you can click on that and drill down and get lists of students. I mean, we can't look at that in this whole thing, but you can drill down, you can get a list of the students. It tells you each student's achievement probability of being proficient or advanced on that next test. That's the valuable data. You can look right there, say this student has a 99.9% chance of being proficient. That kid is probably more than likely going to make it. Unfortunately, we do have students who are in the single digits for being projected as being advanced and proficient on the next round of testing, and those students really do need a look.
So Kelly, just let me ask you, so these are our current 8th graders enrolled in Algebra 1?
No, this is their current 8th graders period.
Current 8th graders.
They could be in Algebra
So if they
1.
were to take the Keystone today,
Yep.
we're saying that only 38% of them would score proficient or advanced.
If we continue doing what we've been doing, giving them like an 8th grade math class. However, we did do something different for these students, and they are in an Algebra 1 class. So that should improve the likelihood of them being proficient or advanced.
And the same thing with the slide on 7th grade, it was only 39%.
Right.
And those were 7th graders or 7th graders in Algebra 1?
It was all 7th graders.
So even if they were in Algebra 1 in 7th grade, they're included in that number here.
Well, you got 18.
No, they're not included. They're a separate category.
Yeah, but they're moving 38% is not too.
Well, 50 or 56.
8 or above proficiency.
So if we continued and kept them in an 8th grade math class, we took the sequence 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is the probability because we kept the conditions the same, we kept the program the same, that they would be proficient or advanced on an Algebra 1 test. We changed their program and now they're in an Algebra 1 class.
We
So
have
that
41% of the kids who are projected not to score proficient.
Which group?
How many kids are going to take Algebra 1 Keystone this year? Right? They're projecting how they're going to do on the Algebra 1 Keystone, but not all the students are in an Algebra 1 class, so they're not all going to take the test this year. So even if only 38% of them are projected to be proficient, they're not 100% of the 7th graders are, not 100% of the current enrolled 8th graders are going to take the Algebra 1 Keystone exam this year.
But a lot more than 41% will.
Well, hopefully we pick up that 17% between 40 and 70 because we've changed their program. So they will hopefully become part of that group. give and take and say, here's the report. The report is saying for your child, looking at your child's past testing history, that things just aren't going to go well. We need to make an adjustment, and we would like to offer your child this course, something like that. Allow us to recommend that for them.
And we are using this data, right, Dr. Deglio, Mr. Ross, for the MathX course, correct? So we might be drilling down to say those kids who are between 40 and 70%, maybe they're the ones we're recommending for the MathX course.
Yeah, part of the problem is Kelly can tell you, we, for the current MathX kids who are recommended in June, if not earlier, the year before, we're using PVAS data from the previous November, October, November.
Well, we don't just use that, we use other things along with it, and then when we get these, we sometimes have to course correct based on what the system is.
So there's kids who, when this came out, they immediately got into MathX because they didn't qualify prior.
The nice thing about these reports, you can also run it by race, gender, and various subgroups. So that allows us to also give some attention to look at those groups and how they are performing. Okay, just to show you the difference. Remember, the last one was the 8th grade group that's in 8th grade now projected to Algebra 1. This is the same 8th grade group, but it is projected to be proficient or advanced on the PSSA math test. Because remember, 8th graders who are in Algebra 1 will take both. They will take the PSSA math test, and they will take the Keystone Algebra 1 test. So there are two sets of projections. And when you look at this group, 83% of our current 8th graders have a 70% or higher chance of being proficient or above on this year's PSSA math test. Unfortunately, we do have about 13% of our students who are below that 70% threshold, and those are the students that hopefully we have gotten into MathX or something like that.
Kelly, can I ask a question? Is it just the principals that have access to these reports, or teachers do too?
Our academic advisors have access to them, and they release them to teachers. The pertinent teachers have access to them as well.
Okay, what about elementary?
The principals do. I mean, we can pull reports. I mean, I know I've pulled reports, as Dave said, we need these kids or whatever, just pull them over to Excel docs and pull them that way.
Well, I can only speak for myself right now, but what I did is I pulled these reports and I printed from so if you really were on the website, you click on the pie chart and it gives you a whole list of the students, the active names. And so what I did is I printed them out for every single teacher. And then they meet as a data team and kind of cross-reference all data points, not just this one, and look at what we need to change in our programming for those kids.
So the teachers do see this eventually?
Yes.
And like Kelly has said before, Colleen, there's a million ways in the system to aggregate that data and to see it in a variety of formats. So if it might be that method she uses, Sheldon might say, okay, this one is a good, picture for the teachers, or I might want to use a report that shows a different projection.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and the next graph what we have here is just to show you the difference between what I did is I took today's current 8th graders and projected them to being proficient on the 8th grade PSSA reading test. And then I took the same group of students and I projected them for being advanced on the PSSA reading test. So if we look at proficiency, we definitely have a higher percentage of students in that greater than or equal to 70%. We have 87% of our students who are, at this point, have a 70% chance of higher of being proficient on the 8th grade PSSA reading test. For being advanced, we're at about 63%. So it just shows you the difference in how these reports work and how they look, and it all depends on what you're looking for. You look at the data, you discuss the data. Some places might be satisfied to say, well, 63% of our kids have a high projected probability of being in the advanced group, and another district might say, we're not happy with that at all. We want to do something with those kids who are borderline and get them moving. So, there's just two different ways of looking at it. Or you might say, well, if we have that percentage, given that we have a very strong, rigorous curriculum, we know we'll catch more of those kids, and we'll end up with a higher rate than 63%. It just all depends on the district, and you really have to take a look at the data based on your student and the programs you can offer. So, some suggestions that have been made on how schools and districts can use this. First of all, students with low achieving probabilities to reach proficiency, they need additional support. We can see that already in 4th grade. There are students who, according to the projections, and the basic what we see that does come to fruition in spring, is that they end up not being proficient. So students who have real high probabilities, we need to take those students, we need to stretch them, and we need to enrich them, and we need to challenge them to take them to whatever is their next level, but we also give the attention and time to the students who are on the other end of the spectrum and need help to get to proficiency. This also leads to discussions as to, are we satisfied? What changes do we need to make based on this information? That could be, we need interventions for students. We need a remediation program for students. We need enrichment for students. We need some kind of challenge program for students. And some of those students are really based on individual students. And what's available is resources in order to do those things for students, and what resources do we need? It kind of provides students with that whole thing of saying, if only I had known. Well, now you know. You know if there's the probability is that they're going to make it, it's pretty good. And you know if the probability isn't so good that they're not going to make it. So you can look at that and say, well, we know now. So will they do well or they won't do well? And we still have time to do something about it. Now, this isn't a crystal ball, so it doesn't tell us what to do. It just tells us what is expected to happen. If we continue doing this, is what we can expect to happen. What can we do to best meet those students' needs? It's just another piece of information. We would have to look, obviously, at other information as well. This is a really great place to start. Okay? And the reason it's such a great place to start is because the calculations and the actual projections have a very strong positive relationship. If we look at these projections, we are pretty sure that this is going to happen because the relationship is very strong. This projection is more reliable at making future projections on future performance of students on oncoming tests, even 3 years into the future. So you can take a student's score in 5th grade and project on how they'll do in 8th grade than any of the recent state test scores. So we can say, oh, the kid was advanced this year, the kid will be advanced next year. That might not necessarily be true based on what the projections are telling us. These are the numbers, and this tells us how often did students with PBOS probabilities of 70% or greater score at proficient or advanced. So the projections going from 3rd to 4th math had a relationship of 94.7. That is statistically significant. It is a high correlation relationship. And then it goes a little bit different. The reading ones seem to run a little stronger than the math ones, and basically part of that is too, because students in math, once you start falling behind, it just seems to keep going. Also, if you look at the data, as students get older, it tends to, especially a reading, start to get stronger, because you have more data, the student has more testing history, and they have more pieces of data to start pulling to make those projections. Algebra 1, literature, and biology, not quite as strong yet because the test is new, but still relatively high, with the lowest one being 88.3%. So if you're thinking of reason, well, maybe we shouldn't use this data, it's not reliable, this data tells you this is very reliable and should be used. So what should schools, how should they use this data, and how are we in downtown using this data? Not using this data would mean not using one of those reliable pieces of data we have as an indicator of how students will do in the future. There doesn't seem to be a question as to if we should use this data. The question is, how do we use it, and then what do we do with what we know? So we already know this information, we have it, what can we do for these students? What resources, what remediations, what interventions do we need for them? Like I said, keep in mind, it's one piece of data, but it is a great place to start. So we take a look at our projections, we talk with teachers, we talk with schools. The first thing we should do is look at students who are at risk of not reaching proficiency or staying proficient. It's those bubble kids too. I mean, they have like a 70% chance of making it, which really means, again, you're getting close to that. It all depends on the day thing. And what are we going to do with those kids to either bump them up or to keep them in that proficient group? All right? Can we get them earlier remediation? Can we get them targeted interventions? What can we do for them? So for instance, example, if you looked at right now, 4th grade this year, 4th graders we have in our class, based on how they did in 3rd grade, 16% of our 4th graders this year have less than a 70% probability of being proficient on 4th grade reading. What are we doing with those students? Same group of students, 8% have less than a 70% probability of being proficient on the math test this year. What are we doing with those students? Some students might need enrichment. We might need to look at placement. Do we put students in 7th grade or 8th grade algebra 1, depending on what they need? So this gives us a couple things. Not only does it let us know who we need to help to keep them proficient or to get them proficient, we also need to look at those kids who are advanced. If they've been advanced, but that percentage to be advanced is starting to get low, we might need to look at those kids. As we all know about growth, we did lose students who were advanced in the past, and we saw that when we went through the whole roster verification process. When we determine course placement, what do we do with kids to get them to the next level? So the use and the power of predictive analytics is first of all to plan interventions. When we know students are projected to not be proficient or better, we have to do something differently inside of the whole definition of insanity. We can't keep doing what we've always done and think that things are going to get better for this child. So we need to do something. For the students who are doing well, how do we plan that enrichment for them? How do we plan that challenge for them?
Mrs. Byrne, can you wrap up?
Okay. All right, just to give, so the buildings get to talk about what they looked at. Their elementary schools, next one, are using this for interventions and remediation. They're targeting students for differentiation in the classroom. They're working interventions during RTI and with the further IST teachers. They're changing their groups for RTI and flexible grouping within their classroom. They're also adjusting study island. They're working with the gifted teachers to get some activities for the students to challenge them. The middle schools, like we already talked about, are talking about the 5th to 6th transition to help with math placement, math X, if we're going to put students in, reading if they need that supplemental course. And we look at that a little differently. When we want to put kids in advanced class, we look at their percentage and their probability of being advanced, because that's the students we want in those high level rigor courses. When we look at support courses for remediation and intervention, we tend to look to see if they're going to be proficient, because if they're not going to be proficient, we need to get them some support. And the high schools are also using it for Math Plus and Bio Plus to get ready, kids more ready for the Keystone exams. And all levels obviously are really looking at this year because of the whole teacher evaluation tool and how it's played with roster verification. The new thing for this year for the projections will be, hope later this year, the state plans that it will now start making projections using PSSA scores and Keystone scores to how students will do on the PSAT, the SAT, and the ACT. Because believe it or not, we have a lot of students who score advanced and proficient on our state tests who are not college ready for their majors, and they're just not college ready for the STEM careers that we hope they will go into. And if you have any other needs for information about this, there's tons of information at this website. Questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Byrne.
That's what happens when you're at the end of the day.
She had 25 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Spears, you and I did not get to give our share of the session. I think the documents that I have, the Reading Wonders Professional Development Plan, I can certainly share that with Curriculum Council. It wasn't on the scrolling agenda, the combined agenda, so I'll make that available to everyone. And the future curriculum resource needs, that was a request of the board to talk about curriculum cycle and where we are with equipment and textbook needs since math and ELA took precedence because of the PA core standards mandate. So I will make that available as well. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.